Hi guys, big one today because we're doing Battle of Five Armies for Middle-earth SPG. The dragon Smaug lies dead, slain by the black arrow fired by Bard and Esgaroth. Yet ill temperament and conflict still lies ahead. Consumed by the dragon sickness that lies upon the vast treasure hoards of Erebor, Thorin refuses to honour his oath to share the wealth with the people of Lake Town, instead opting to send for his cousin Dane and an army of dwarves from the Iron Hills. Walled into his kingdom, Thorin is approached once more by Bard Thranduil and a glittering host of Mirkwood elves who, thanks to Bilbo, now possess the Arkenstone. Planning to use the jewel of Thorin's house as a bargaining piece, Thorin is once more confronted by Bard in an attempt to make the belligerent dwarf honour his word. Yet Thorin will not cave, believing this to be a ruse made by his perceived enemies. Standing defiant atop the gates of Erebor, Thorin hears the sound of iron-shod boots marching in unison towards his gates. The arrival of Dane Ironfoot only exacerbates the situation, provoking Thranduil and starting a battle between elves and dwarves that sees casualties on both sides. As dwarves and elves clash blade with axe, the armies of Azog burst forth from the ground, uniting these unlikely allies together in order to prevent the mountain from falling into the hands of the enemy. As dwarves, elves and men set aside their differences in the face of the armies of the Pale Orc, the battle for the mountain begins. Right, so it's quite a simple scenario. From the evil side, Azog begins behind his army. His army comprises a buttload of orcs and lots of nasty trolls and a troll catapult, which is kind of terrifying. And they can deploy up to halfway up the 6x4 table. Bolg leading a bunch of Gundabad berserkers and goblin mercenaries who will come on from the northern board edge within their table half. And from the good perspective, they're sort of split up to begin with. So the the Iron Hills have to deploy closest to Azog Legion. So that's Dane with a whole bunch of tin cans basically and one chariot, which is quite nice. Then behind them you've got the Halls of Thranduil, which is basically Thranduil on elk captain, and then just lots of sort of elf warriors. And finally, behind them, you got Thorin's company. So this is all the champions of Erebor, and they all sort of surge forth. And yes, that's how they deploy. And then you got Radagast's alliance sort of turning up, turn 7 from the northern board edge. So that's got Beorn, Radagast on an eagle, Gwaihir, and then 4 great eagles. So you get some late reinforcements. So the objectives, again, quite simple. They revolve around Azog and Thorin. If depending on whether they're slain or not, it gives points to good or evil. Thranduil has to move off the western board edge or give that VP to evil, and then whoever controls the centre of the board at the end of the game, and final point is for quartering. The game is played until one side is quartered.
There you go. I'm like team.
Right, so we're team good. So how we're divvying stuff up is, I think I'm going to take the left flank, Cam will take the right flank, we'll share dwarves and elves. Thomas, you're taking champions of Erebor, and I think whoever is sort of lost the most models or can be bothered the most will take the eagles, and that's how we'll do it. Team good. Woo! Okay, so team evil. I'm obviously not on team evil. You've got James and Charlie, so you're pretty much just divvying up stuff straight down the middle, aren't you? Like half monsters and stuff. Obviously you'll take your catapult troll, and and then obviously with the reinforcements you'll just split them again. So just like proper marriage down the middle.
Yeah, do it by table sides.
Yeah.
You take.
What team? Right. So here we have deployment. So once I stop shaking the camera, you'll see that we've got champions of Erebor coming out of Erebor. I've got an elf captain just in front of them to help call marches. We've got a chariot hidden there. That's just to try and prevent it getting hit or charged turn 1, so that we can actually have at least one pop with it before it dies. This is Cam's lot there, moving into mine. You'll see I've just we've both set up channels to basically get a dwarf elf sort of shield wall going on. Thran Daddy is down there at the side. Just another look at those champions, look very nice. And then Gundabad, there's not too much of note about the Gundabad deployment really. They just got all their trolls in the front line, ogres behind, catapults behind, and captains in front to call the marches. Obviously, I'll get 3 marches turn 1 if they call it with the signal tower, and obviously that Azog at the back just catching up. So it's into turn 1. So obviously it's a narrative scenario, so good to have priority turn 1, so it means we have to go first. Not too much to report, we just sort of shuffle back to try and sort of stretch our line as best we can, whilst having sort of an elf dwarf set up to get the fight value from the elf, and then the robustness of the dwarf. We keep a little channel open in the middle, because my big fear here is that we'll box the champions out, which is what we do not want to be doing. One of the champions has to call a march this turn, just because my elf captain's not quite in range. Yeah, that's that. And on over to the evil side, they obviously called the free heroic march with the signal tower, so all the captains are marching, so everyone's sort of shuffling up 9 inches, so they just move the whole line forwards. That's about it really. Right, so turn 1 shooting, obviously good team shooting first. We did move some stuff. We tried to keep our crossbows more, where they were, so we could have some shots from there. And obviously a chariot gets a repeated crossbow, sort of Van Helsing style, I guess. Ineffective shooting really. We chipped a few wounds off of some big monsters, but nothing too telling. I killed a random spearman. That was it really from our side. We needed a pretty hefty turn, but I think they're just going to be on us too quickly to get any decent shooting in, to be honest. Evil side only has one thing capable of shooting, but it is the catapult, which is mildly terrifying. They were thinking about trying to hit the champions of Erebor, but Thomas sort of set up some nice little scatter points, so if they did go for the big sort of dwarves, then it would just get scattered onto something less important. So they aimed for. We have a bit of a mass in the centre of our line, sort of near the hole where we're expecting the champions to go. So they chucked a boulder there, killed a couple of elves and dwarves, but nothing too major. Mostly just knocking everyone prone because the wound roll dice are pretty guff. But with that, we're straight into turn 2. Right, so good priority again this turn. The Gundabad captain opposite Thranduil on my side called a heroic, just to shunt his monsters into my line. This wasn't horrific since I was sort of fairly prepared to receive a charge. Thranduil was sat at the back with a sort of Thranduil-sized hole in my line. Obviously a few orcs charged through it, but then I was able to countercharge, although I wasn't able to get off the first impact hit, which was pretty sad. But at least Thranduil got into combat on my side. And then it kind of meant that my line sort of remained fairly static, and then Cam moved his line forward to get the charges in. My line was just over 5 inches away, so even though part of my line got charged, I could have potentially moved my other guys up, but I wouldn't have quite been able to get the charges I needed, so I just sort of stayed put. But it means we sort of end up with a line that's a bit staggered, which is a bit weird, but not too bad. There's kind of a bit of a gap between our lines, but that's not the worst thing ever for Champions of Erebor. And we've got some guys floating around the middle to plug any gaps. Gundabad monsters all get in, start ready to cause some carnage, and that's it, into the shoot phase. So for the shoot phase, we still had a few shots open. Just sort of a elf bow here and crossbow there, sort of behind the line, unengaged with a few open shots, but nothing really came of it. Cam did spot a beautiful little play, which was shooting the crossbow on the chariot at Azog, who was in the open. So we got 5 shots, I think 4 of them hit, but no wounds. So that heavy armour protecting Azog there, coming in clutch potentially. And the catapult troll missed. So that's it. Over to the fight phase. So a very interesting fight phase. So if we start at the top of the board, we had an ogre charging a chariot, I believe. Ogre came out on top and stuck a wound on the chariot, which isn't great. I think it was the chariot itself, so not the crew. Dane and Captain went into a big scary troll. So Dane spent a might to strike. Him and the Captain won the combat. They got a wound through naturally, but then it saw an opportunity to spend both of the Captain's might and one from Dane to just put the troll in the ground. So that's what they did. So Dane's down to 1 might, which isn't great, but obviously Captain's got Master of Battle, so that's not too bad. There's obviously this bit of a swirling melee in the middle. Since Gundabad obviously called the signal that gave them a board-wide banner, obviously helped them quite a lot. So Cam lost about 7 sort of elves and dwarves. James only lost 2 orcs, so not great. But a troll did pick someone up and tried to hurl him into Dane, but got the intelligence roll wrong. So ended up throwing an elf into a different elf, but one of the elves died, so that was alright. Different troll hurling into Thorin, not causing a wound, but getting him on his bum, which obviously isn't ideal because we need to be getting him into the fight. So towards my end of the board, Thranduil sort of sets the tone for the game by obviously failing to wound from the impact hit in the move phase. Then rolling like garbage in the fight phase. He bounces off an orc, but doesn't suffer any wounds. But he's then promptly hurled into, and obviously that knocks him flying. So he is now on foot. Obviously, given his special rules, it's not the worst thing that he's on foot. But given my plan is to try and get him off the western board edge, that ain't happening anymore. So we sort of discussed before the game as to what objectives probably going to be going for. I suggested Thranduil's probably not the one to play for. This sort of just confirms that really. So Thranduil's off his elk, on his bum. Similar numbers to Cameron's side of things. I lost 6 or 7 dudes, killed a couple of orcs. I did beat a troll and stuck a wound on the troll with crushing clubs. But the troll with scythe gauntlets killed one of my warriors and then stuck a wound on my Iron Hills captain. Which wasn't great. Obviously, just rolling 6 in the duel roll because obviously I'll be quite happy to spend my captain's might just to win that duel, whether I wound or not. Just sort of keep the troll sort of from causing too much trouble whilst we get the big hitters up. Right, so turn 3. Those Gundabad reinforcements not too far away from turn 5, but for now, good win priority again. Evil call a couple of heroic moves on either flank. One's just to sort of pin stuff down around Thranduil, get a charge on Thranduil as well whilst he's on his butt. I don't counter on my side just because I think if I've got any hope of sort of keeping Thranduil going, I've just got to save obviously my captain's calling marches and whatnot to get the champions of Erebor into the game. On the other flank, James kind of just reforms the line a bit, but pins the chariot in place with an ogre. Cam decides not to counter on the account of a lack of might, obviously. I think the dwarf captain either fails his Master of Battle or is too far away, so doesn't have any impact. We then sort of push everything up as you'd expect. So Gloin sort of leading the charge for the dwarfs in the middle. The first of the champion of Erebor to get stuck in. So I think the rest either in anti-catapult formation or just not quite in yet. But James and Charlie make a pretty smart play actually, which is obviously their centre's not moved yet, and so once we've moved, they chuck their brute into to Gloin. They don't get any luck from the impact hits, but they do get a big nasty troll in combat with Gloin for the fight phase. Just moving swiftly into the shoot phase because it wasn't too crazy. Basically, good shooting did nothing, including the Iron Hills Chariot crossbow ineffectual. The Gundabad shooting was more interesting though because they chucked a boulder at Thorin, rolled the 1 on the scatter. Unfortunately, the only guy we could put it on still ended up hitting a lot of our guys. But the sort of the to wound rolling was not great from the evil players, so a lot of people on their bum, but not many people actually dead. Although significantly the troll brute did take a wound, so suffering wound from that splash damage. So I'm sure you'll see momentarily, but that may or may not be significant. So moving on to the fight phase, not too many significant losses on my side actually, which is quite nice. Lost a few elves, but nothing too major. Thranduil won his fight, stood up, and then immediately got hurled into again, so he's back on his bum for the start of next turn. So not ideal. And yeah, didn't sort of take too many losses. The captain suffered another wound, so he's lost 2 wounds now, but it was he passed his fate, so he's sort of 1 wound, 2 might. Not ideal. So where the catapult boulder landed as well, I generally won those fights and stood back up as well. So there's an ogre still prone, which isn't too bad at all. Yeah, my guys all standing up around it. Gloin was definitely the star of the show, so he spent a might to heroic strength, which I believe in this edition means he doubles his strength rather than adds d3, so it means he's strength 8, which is pretty bananas. He beats the brute in combat because he's a higher fight value. Can't remember what the dice were, it might not have mattered. And he spent... in fact, actually, I remember he spent a might to win the fight, and then a might to stick extra wounds on, so he ended up finishing off the brute in one go, basically. So I think that sort of chip damage from the sort of one on the scatter dice from the catapult and the shoot phase was actually quite significant in the end. But yeah, Gloin just slaps it. So I'm pretty sure he's out of might now, but he's done his job. And we were debating whether to not spend the might and sort of engineer a way to get Biffer on it because it's themey and cool and the special rule, but it's one of those where the following turn, you might lose priority or the roll off or whatever, and then you've got a brute stampeding through your ranks, and then they might end up killing Biffer anyway. So it's just like, you know what, just put it in the ground, fine, job done. That was pretty remarkable actually, pretty good for us. Dane did well, so he was up against an ogre and he just slapped it, put it in the ground. Chariot did okay as well, so I had 2 ogres against it. Chariot lost the fight, but the ogres did no wounds, so that's a pretty big whiff. Could have been a pretty good opportunity to take the Chariot out. So we're hoping the Chariot's going to cause some carnage if it actually gets a proper set of impact hits off. And then just sort of general pushing and shoving back in the middle. And then I realised when filming this we hadn't quite finished the fight phase because we had this Troll Crushing Club to deal with. He won his fight against an elf and wanted to chuck it at Thorin, but failed his intelligence test, so he got thrown at a random elf instead. So that's always exciting to see. But with that is sort of a mixed fight phase. Obviously, evil losing some key monsters there, but some from my perspective not too great because Thranduil was on his bum and I sort of survived rather than do any serious damage. But with that, we're on to turn 4. Right, so turn 4, once again, good getting priority. Evil call a heroic move in the middle. This is just because there's a lot of stuff that's prone from that giant boulder from the catapult troll last time. So it just sort of makes sense for them to try and get a bit of momentum in the middle. And pin down some of the stuff that's already prone, as well as pick the fights a bit more, especially with champions of Erebor, and try and box them out, that sort of thing. I counter with my Mirkwood Elf captain, who's still hanging out with the champions of Erebor at the moment. It goes evil, so they're able to get that move in the middle. But then after that, we obviously on both flanks it's then over to us, which is good for me because I get Thranduil back up on his feet, and I'm able to pick a fight where he's on two opponents. So hopefully, obviously it triggers his extra attack and rerolls and whatnot. But as well as that, hopefully I can sort of set up a combat for next turn with his other special rules. Other than that, I'm just sort of continuing to just engage and sort of pick fights a bit more and try and hold up monsters, that sort of thing. Cam does the same sort of thing on his side. Interestingly, the Iron Hills Chariot kills an ogre with impact hits and then charges the other ogre. Finally, Azog has finally made it into combat, so he's on the evil left flank, so on Cam's side for me. So fortunately not my problem. Shooting wise, nothing really of note. I'm not sure we have any shooting anymore. Oh, aside from the Ironhill's chariot, which did chip a wound off the catapult troll because it's a large target, so it was able to target the catapult troll. So cheeky wound on that. Catapult troll moved up in the move phase, failed to roll the 6 to hit our chariot. So that was that. So into the fight phase. So moving on to the fight phase, I call it a heroic combat with Thranduil. The idea is that I kill the 2 orcs I'm in combat with, so obviously I'm on 4 attacks and then reroll failing to wound because I'm outnumbered on foot. So to my mind it was a good idea to try and get into combat off those guys and sort of move him towards the middle to try and sort of help out there rather than getting isolated and killed. And then obviously if he killed those 2 he'd then power up a free combat for the following turn, so that seemed like a good idea. But then a captain just opposite him loaded up a combat against one elf with a whole bunch of dudes, and the idea was then just to bog down Thranduil, just put the captain in Thranduil, something like that. So Charlie's combat went first. They somehow lost to one elf, so that put pay to that. But then I won against the orcs and only killed 1, so pretty miserable failures down there. And then we had some troll related shenanigans. So the troll with Crushing Club tried to hurl someone into Thranduil, failed the intelligence test, and then hurled it into the guy who just fended off 5 orcs, so he died after all that. And then the the troll with Scythe Gauntlet finally saw off that Ironhill's captain who died with 2 might, which was sad, but I just wasn't able to use it because I was trying to save it to sort of win combats or something. If I won and maybe stick a few wounds on, but no, I just kept losing and then he died. Just sort of general sort of melee stuff going on in the middle. Dane and the chariot were both in combat with that remaining Gundabad ogre, so they saw that off. And then further down, Azog bounced off a single dwarf. So, and in the middle as well, the troll with Crushing Club on Cameron's side went and bonked Gloin on the head. So, revenge for the lost brute, but I think I'll still take that trade. So with that, on to turn 5, and the turn in which evil reinforcements turn up. Right, for turn 5, very big turn. Evil win priority and a subsequent heroic move off in the middle between a captain and I forget which dwarf it is, the one with the axe in his head. So last turn he managed to get the axe out of his head, so we're getting 3 heroic moves every turn, but alas it did not help us here. So nothing too interesting, just sort of means that evil sort of picking fights and sort of getting around us and getting the traps and stuff where they can. So sort of standard sort of things. Obviously it's the end of their turn. Well, sorry, at the end of their movement that they bring on the reinforcements. So they just brought them on in quite a logical way, which is basically bats up front, berserkers behind, and goblins bringing up the rear, just so they could all move as far as possible. Bolgs sort of in the mix there at the back of the Gundabad berserkers. So there wasn't really sort of many options for them in terms of deployment. They just deployed up the board as far as they could, but whilst moving around this sort of blocking terrain piece that was protecting our right flank. So they're going to come up and join the battle next to Cameron. So looking a bit bleak, I think we're going to have to rely on our eagles in a couple of turns to help deal with that. And yeah, that's it. No shooting of any note really, so straight into the fight phase. Okay, so fight phase. Starting with me, Thranduil was in combat with Captain and one of his friends. I ended up sinking Thranduil's last 2 might to kill everyone in the combat, so yeah, it just means he gets free hero combat next turn, which I probably fairly desperately need, to be honest. Trolls continuing to clean up around me. To be honest, my I don't want to complain too much, but my luck this game was pretty horrific. So my dudes are sort of melting. So you'll notice there's a lot fewer sort of elves and dwarves than there were at the start of the game. I do have a few members of the company of Thorin coming down my end, sort of help clear stuff up. They already sort of all ganged up on a troll and killed him, so that was pretty sweet. Sort of moving further up, had an elf hurled into Bomber, which chipped the wound off, knocked him prone. Azog killed a single guy he was in combat with. I think Dane was boxed out this turn because how the priority went meant that Evil could sort of box him out, so he couldn't actually get into combat. So he was not doing a lot this turn, and that's it. So we're into turn 6 now, and not too long before we get our Eagles. Okay, so good priority. On my end, I have Thranduil do his scary nonsense where he spends a will and tries to make everyone run away. It's kind of like the old version of Instill Fear. It didn't really work because, a few orcs sort of, ran away a bit, but ultimately I needed the sort of 2 Gundabad ogres and the Gundabad troll to run away to sort of make me a bit of space. But it didn't work, so instead I charged Thranduil into a troll with an orc, just so he's outnumbered to get the extra attacks and stuff. I spent all his might already, so I'm sort of relying on the Elven Blade to break any ties or what have you. Win the duel basically, and then I sort of used my few remaining dudes to basically just box everyone out around him so that I could. So that I could just protect that combat. Hopefully Thranduil, if I get lucky, would finish off the troll. Further up the field, not too much happening. Sort of my end, just champions of Erebor trying to kill some big nasty stuff and sort of make their way down towards Thranduil. I'm running out of dudes here, so I'm just sort of tying up what I can, and then we just sort of tie stuff up in the middle and on Cam's end. Dane gets a charge on someone, just sort of slowly trying to sort of cut away towards Azog potentially, and then Cam sort of pulls back a few dudes and forms a defensive line behind the chariot, which he then sort of manoeuvres to try and basically sort of ride across some berserkers. I think he does inflict a bit of damage, but ends up being countercharged by a lot of berserkers in the evil move. Shoot phase, nothing happens. So that's it. So into the fight phase. Okay, so fight phase. Thranduil actually managed to beat the troll, which was pretty good, and caused 2 wounds, leaving it alive on 1 wound, which is a bit tantalising to be honest. The elf who was boxing out the 2 ogres just next to him got hurled into Thranduil, so Thranduil's back on his backside, which seems to be where he spends a lot of time. I've got very few guys left now. I've got Thomas's champions of Erebor sort of sauntering their way down. They sort of together polish off an ogre and one of the trolls, so clearing a lot of space there. And sort of moving up, it's just again a bit of pushing and shoving. I think Cam's having a lot better luck with the dice. I roll so bad. Azog and Dane sort of cleared a path to one another, which is potentially going to be interesting. The chariot obviously lost the combat, and but with what is it, like 10 berserkers or whatever it is, they caused 1 wound, so chariot's still up and running, so that's going to be pretty tasty. So with that, we're into the next turn. So turn 7 is a significant turn because at the end of our move phase we bring the Eagles on. But first, for our moves, I try a different tactic with Thranduil and I pop him into 2 Gundabad ogres. I'm being pretty reckless with him because things have gone so bad where I am, on my end of the table, and he's definitely not getting off that western board edge, so just chuck him in. I just figured if I chuck him into 2 ogres, he's on 4 attacks to win the duel, and then potentially taking one of those ogres out, hopefully fairly comfortably if he wins the fight. And then I sort of shuffle people over to sort of pin down the troll and stuff. I'm trying to move the champions of Erebor, sort of, a few of them sort of slowly down towards my end just to deal with the those 2 ogres and the troll, because I think Cam's dealt with most of the monsters on his side of the board, so I think we just need to get them off. Oh yeah, we're looking a bit thin on the ground in the middle of the table, but sort of more towards Cam's end. Obviously the champions are trying to get involved. Dane charges Nork, can't quite get to Azog, so Azog gets pinned down by a different dude. Chariot runs over, I think, about 4 or 5 berserkers, and then gets pinned down. We bring the eagles on behind our line. There was a bit of debate as to whether we bring them on behind the enemy line or behind our line, but we ended up doing behind our line because it kind of protects them a bit. It means they can pick their moment to sort of fly over the front line and get stuck in. Whereas if we deployed them behind the enemy line, potentially they're a bit more vulnerable and isolated. So that's what we ended up doing. And we put Radagast sort of near the front so we can chuck a transfix on Bolg at the opportune moment. Guahir's on top of some ruins, ready to sort of fly down and cause some carnage. Beorn, we've got him sort of sat like a little tactical nuke at the back. And in the evil move, they just sort of surround the chariot. Obviously, just sort of charge stuff in, start moving goblins around. Start thinking about an anti-fly formation a bit as well to stop our eagles landing behind their lines too much. And the bats, the war bats, are quite significant, so they're sort of flying over our lines and plucking as well, and trying to get in a position probably just to pin down some key pieces, whether that be sort of champions or eagles or whatnot. Shooting wise, the catapult missed again. I think it's the 3rd turn in a row he's missed. 60 hours of hobbying, my Mr. Murphy well spent there. Right, so I've been fairly unlucky this game with my dice, which has been mildly frustrating at times. This turn, it was awful. I think I don't have many dudes left, but I think I lost pretty much every fight and I lost a lot more dudes. So I think I've got like literally a handful of warriors left. Thranduil went down to the 2 Gundabad ogres. It's possibly not a great idea just shunting him in there and sort of just expecting him to live, but equally he sort of needed to do something. The champions of Erebor, who sort of slotted in behind him, did take the last wound off of that troll. So it was a bit like, well, if Thranduil had a bit more luck and taken one of those Gundabad ogres out, then suddenly, I've got Thranduil and some champions, and they've got 1 ogre and some orcs, and doesn't look too bad at that point. But yeah, it didn't work out. In retrospect, possibly a fairly bold strategy anyway. But is what it is. Camfer's a bit better with his rolling. He's got sort of quite a sort of throng of warriors still sort of kicking around the middle. The champions of Erebor sort of slowly cleaning up as well, which is nice to see. Dane loses his pig elsewhere, which is slightly unfortunate. Azog, nothing too interesting happens with Azog, but the main point is that the chariot is dead, so that's quite a blow, because obviously if we get lucky with the move off and what have you, potentially a lot of impact hits, but I'm surprised it lasted this long, to be honest. So I think it did a noble job, but yeah, sad to see it go. Obviously none of our eagles are in combat this turn, so we're hoping turn 9 might be a bit better, but turn 7, a lot of heavy blows, unfortunately. But yeah, that's it. Yeah, so we're going into turn. Right, so turn 8 move. Evil get priority, and then win a subsequent heroic move roll off in the middle, which is not super good for us. On the one hand, it doesn't really matter sort of down my end of the board. I think all the bad stuff that was going to happen has already happened, so nothing too major. It just gives Evil a bit of a bit of opportunity to set some stuff up. So Bolg charges the Iron Hills captain with probably a view of combating off of him and then helping Azog, who's into Dane. So that's pretty nasty there. Single Warbat sort of just charges into an eagle at the back just to tie it up. We countercharge with a couple of other eagles, probably with the view of combating off of them, because Beorn's on one of them as well. So if we could sort of slingshot him in the middle, that would be quite spicy. Guahir just charges into a bat. He's gonna heroic off. But our plans change because the catapult troll actually hits something. I think it scores a direct hit on one of the birds. I think it's the bird carrying Beorn as well, so that's not great. So basically, the bird's hit, and Beorn then falls off and takes. I think he takes a wound, which I think we save with fate or whatever. But he's knocked prone as well, and because he kind of didn't dismount as such, then he doesn't. Our reading was he doesn't start as a bear, so he's it's gone pretty much as bad as it could have done on that front. So setting us up for potentially a bit of a scary combat. Okay, so turn 8 fight phase. This one's a bit of a quiet one actually. In that a few interesting things happened. So near the top of the board. Beorn's combat, the good side won, so the eagle and Beorn stood up, so that's hopefully good for next turn. Guahir combated off of a bat and sort of charged, so that he's in quite a tasty position behind enemy lines. And Bolg combated off the captain, then he and Azog bonked Dane on the head and killed him. Again, just sort of a bit of general pushing and shoving in the middle, a few casualties on both sides. Down my end of the board, the game sort of seems somewhat neutralised, to be honest, as we sort of just bounce off each other, and occasionally there's like 1 or 2 casualties. So not too interesting down my end anymore. But with that, we're heading into turn 9. It's worth bearing in mind that as the good side, we are actually approaching being quartered, which is what triggers the end of the game. So now is the time to probably start thinking about objectives and ideally rolling more 6s. Right, on to turn 9. Right, turn 9, good team get priority. It doesn't help us a huge amount down my end. I don't know if you can really call it my end anymore, because I've got nothing left alive down there really. It's just sort of Champions of Erebor now, just sort of pinning stuff down really. Not too much is happening there. It's just sort of, like I said, I think it's neutralised a bit. It's probably not going to have an impact on the rest of the game really, because it's quite far away from everything else, and there's not really any big players down there. So that's just going to sort of rumble away. Guahir charges the catapult troll. We're sort of umming and ahhing quite a long time about this. It seems like it's a bit of a sort of, YOLO type move, but the catapult troll has like a really big base and is dominant 5, so in terms of controlling the middle of the board, actually it's not a bad idea to try and shift it, and obviously it's not actually that great in combat really, unless it wins, in which case it's not bad because of the powerful strikes it makes, and the goblin crew get involved as well. That just doesn't bear thinking about, so I'm sure Guahir's going to win, so that'll be fine. Elsewhere, Daddy Raddy calls a Nature's Wrath, knocks a few things on their bums, and kills a couple of things, and then charges in, so not a bad move at all. Beorn charges the Berserker at a bat, that's all he can really reach at the moment, but he is sort of kicking around the same area as Bolg and Azog, so that's pretty scary. Other than that, our Eagles just sort of getting involved, trying to influence the game a bit more, and those Champions of Erebor again trying to shift up towards the middle of the board, and where Azog's sort of lurking. And in the evil move, nothing too exciting, just sort of keeping some sort of semblance of an anti-fly formation whilst trying to chuck some more dudes into key combats. And that's it, into the fight phase. Right, so starting at the bottom of the table, pretty much just stuff bouncing off each other down my end of the table. Nothing really significant happens down there. What is really sad is so I had Guahir in on the catapult troll. He had 1 might left. I wasn't sure whether to save it to win the dual roll or not. In the end, I went for a heroic strength because that would make the to wound rolls from a 5 down to a 3, and I think well, I think I needed 3 threes, was it? I can't remember now. I think it was 3 threes from 4 dice to just put it down, and it felt like it was worth the risk, to be honest. But it wasn't, because I rolled absolute... Yeah, I didn't roll well. And the catapult troll easily won the fight and then just completely stomped Gwahir immediately. So that was slightly embarrassing. Yeah, it's kind of... I was sort of wondering whether Gwahir would have been better off just sort of running around killing infantry and sort of threatening some of the big heroes, but we need to take catapult troll out just because it's dominating the middle and we're never going to get that objective with it stood there. So felt like Gwahir, with a bit of luck, was sort of pretty well equipped to deal with it. And Thorin and the elf captain were sort of hanging around. I can't remember if the intention was for Thorin to combat near, sort of combat that way, but he wasn't able to help this turn, otherwise things might have been different. But yeah, so Gwahir's down. That's not good. In the middle of the table, champions of Erebor sort of just, pushing a hole in the middle, sort of killing a bunch of orcs and stuff. It's pretty nice. The eagles basically clean up. I think Raddy does a combat, but I think he bounces off a goblin captain in the end. But so as in, I think he gets his initial hero combat off, but then fails to also sort of win the second round of fighting. But yeah, all the eagles cleaning up, and sort of the evil side running out of guys to keep up an effective anti-fly formation, so they're sort of starting to cluster around Azog and Bolg a bit more just to sort of protect those guys specifically. And that's it. So yeah, good, not a million miles away from being quartered either, so it's probably going to be last couple of turns. Right, turn 10, evil priority, but we call a free heroic move with, I can't remember his name, the fellow with the axe in his head, who no longer has an axe in his head. So evil decide not to counter. We're getting pretty thin on the ground, to be honest. So Thorin and the elf captain sort of charge the catapult troll. There are counter charges sort of trying to peel them away from the catapult troll because the evil team also want to keep him alive. We're sort of charging Beorn and the eagles in. Interestingly, Beorn does manage to get into Bolg, and there's a few champions of Erebor with some might hanging around as well, so that's interesting. Yeah, so we managed to sort of position things quite nicely actually, and then the evil side basically just trying to sort of countercharge and peel where they can really. And that's it, so into the fight phase. So turn 10, quite a few sort of key combats actually, not so much down my end of things. Thomas is busy sort of farting around with the eagles, so I take over some rolling for the champions of Erebor down there, and I think because I'm rolling for them, I think like two or three of them die. Yeah, so literally as soon as I start rolling for them, that's when they just fluff and die. So that's pretty much how the day has gone for me. So there's a lot of heroic combats in the middle with champions of Erebor. I think yeah, just combats to try and peel stuff, to try and peel the stuff that the evil side put in to peel stuff off of the catapult troll. So there's a lot of peeling there. What that meant is Thorin ended up in a 1v1 with the catapult troll, which he won and then caused a couple of wounds. Frustrating as the catapult troll is alive on 1 wound. It's not great. Elsewhere though, Beorn obviously was in a combat with Azog, but 2 champions of Erebor managed to heroic combat into Azog as well, and although he would have been knocked over with the monstrous charge, they trap Azog for good measure, and Azog is killed, so that's a significant swing. And the eagles all sort of float towards the middle and just cause absolute carnage. But with that, the game does end because the good side have been quartered. So it's time to go and tot up victory points. Right, so in the end, 3-2 evil victory. So you what did he do? I can't remember now. He 25%ed us, which triggered the end of the game.
Yeah.
Killed Thranduil.
You killed Thranduil,
Well,
so
stopped him from getting off the board.
You stopped him by death.
Yes.
So that's definitely stopped him. And then in the middle, we did a tally. So we had 11 models, including all the dominant stuff in the middle, and Evil had 12. So annoyingly, you have one by one,
And you killed
one model.
Azor.
And then we killed Azor, kept Thorin alive. So
the catapult troll won it for us, basically.
So yeah, so basically Murphy's catapult troll won. That's twice as that.
Do it again. It's on camera.
It's on
camera. Like, just keeping the debrief quite brief. I think basically my side capitulated. Thranduil didn't really pull his weight. I think my dice were pretty guff. So that didn't help.
Blame the dice.
Yeah. It was all the dice. Nothing wrong with
Yeah.
it was only like 50 models. Champions of Erebor absolutely cleaned up. I think you lost one.
I lost one.
Yeah,
you lost two more.
Oh, yeah, I lost two. Yeah, so my guff rolling in the last turn, I got 2 more killed. I also got Gwahir killed when he went into the catapult, and then what did he do? He did a heroic strength, didn't roll the 6, and then died. No, he took 3 wounds. I failed all 3 fate.
You got a captain of Iron Hills killed very early on.
I got him killed, and he had 2 might. So he just kept sort of not rolling very hard.
Just don't trust you with heroes.
Just literally just don't.
Our best player today was James.
How many of your elves made it to the middle?
One. My captain.
Captain.
Yeah, my captain. Yeah, what we talked about. And then, so what happened? Then on your flank, I think you did a lot better. The chariot.
The chariot did okay. It sort of, I think it fluffed a few rolls.
To be fair, I thought it was going to get catapult with turn 1, so I think
okay.
Doing anything's okay.
Mm-hmm. yeah. It would be nice to get a few more of that last one, but it made its points back, I think.
Oh yeah.
And so did the guy who one pumped the brute. Is that Biff?
Gloin.
Yeah, Gloin just went in and
then died.
Yeah. What did he do? Did he strength or strike?
Strength.
He strength, and then he just killed it in 1.
Yeah. It would have taken a wound, and then killed it.
Oh yeah, that was it. Yeah. And then I think our eagle was basically what cleaned up in the end. So we were 10 models off of 25%ing you. So I reckon one more turn, maybe, but it wasn't to be. End of the game was triggered. That's that.
Happy days.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, enjoy us. Join us for the next one. I hope you enjoyed.